you've been a long-time Netflix bull, and I'm just wondering if you think they should just say, you know what, we have won. Do you feel like you have been proven right, given what all the other streamers have reported in their quarters?
Well, I think I've been proven right that Netflix was going to emerge as the most valuable media company. It is more valuable than Disney today. If you pull out of Disney the parks business, which I really consider to be in the travel and leisure area more than media, Netflix's media value is probably 2 or 3 times the value of Disney as a media company. But look, Netflix still has things to prove, not the least of which is that password sharing, where it said 100 million people are getting the service without paying for it, can be something that they can correct. I think to the extent they can do that, they will demonstrate that they have an even more powerful franchise than the market is now giving them.
Tom Scarron, thanks for being on. So excellent call, obviously, over many years to be long Netflix. But so now they're clearly the winner. And so how do you think the rest of the field shakes out? It's crowded and everybody else is losing money and content costs are still very high. How do you, I've been expecting consolidation for a while. Doesn't seem to be happening. But how do you think it plays out from here?
Well, Netflix has developed 3 moats, I think, that make it very difficult for others to emerge on the same level. They have an enormous content spend where the other traditional media companies are having to pare back. They have a phenomenal international distribution as well as international production play. And that international global play they have is one that allows them to have much more ability to create value beyond the U.S., where the others are very stuck in terms of some U.S.-centric assets. And then they have enormous cash flow already, something we debated on this show many times. Would they ever be cash flow positive? They're projecting $3.5 billion this year. Compare that to Disney over the last year, which lost about $4 billion in cash on its streaming efforts. And you put that cash flow, and it helps them support those other 2 moats very significantly. So the others are burdened by a traditional business that just continues to decline, and cord cutting is getting worse. And now we're back to 58% of households in the United States having the cable satellite bundle, which was back where we were in 1992, 3 years after we launched CNBC. And that is just an indication of how difficult the hole is that the traditional media companies have to climb out of. And it's not just can they hit profitability in streaming? Can they be profitable enough to make up for that hole and more? And there's a real question mark as to whether they will. Consolidation will probably follow from that. There's no indication that consolidation is going to happen quickly. So in the meantime, the traditional media companies have a lot more to prove than Netflix.
It's interesting, Tom, because you've been skeptical of Disney for a while, and it sounds like you're very skeptical specifically of its streaming business. What is it really, the legacy business that is preventing it from seeing its streaming potential because it's bogged down by that balance sheet that's laden with debt? Or what is it? Because when Disney announced that they were going to get into the streaming game, everybody thought, oh, they have this amazing content a library of content, I should say. And so who can catch up to Disney on that front? What happened to that?
Well, Disney does have a phenomenal library, and that library has value. Warner Brothers has a phenomenal library as well, and that has value. But as David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, said recently, 5 shows on HBO represent 90% of their viewing. When you have a statistic like that, the value of a library relative to building a streaming service just is not as important as the kind of value you can build by creating new shows with the kind of content spend that Netflix can bring forward. Startling statistic, the top 10 list of Nielsen every week that comes out, the combination of all the other streaming services together, Netflix has 3 times that viewing audience among the top 10 lists, and 5 times greater viewing than its next biggest competitor in terms of viewing share. So there's just an awful lot there that they're burdened in terms of the existing business, Netflix on a whole other plane. And I think while the assets these other companies have are valuable, they didn't turn out to be as valuable in the streaming world as many initially thought.